Is everybody in the groove? Just warming up, baby.
Good morning, everyone. 2 minutes till the stream is starting. All right. Hello, good morning, and welcome. So let me quickly press on a different button that we mark this position as the starting of the stream. Great. Now we are ready. Hello and welcome everyone to a second live stream since I am started as a full-time employee YouTuber again. So how is everyone doing? Are you fine? Are you happy? Did you have a good start into the day? I had certainly one, and now we have a great live stream in front of us. If you have never participated in a live stream like that, don't worry. Let's see, I could maybe put the camera a little bit lower. Sorry for that. So And in this live streams, I will explain usually something inside of Flutter and Dart. Today we will have a look into Flutter per se. So how do we create a Flutter project? How is Flutter looking? And so on and so forth. What we will start first is a little news update. What's new in the technology part? Hey Ken, welcome from Sweden. Great to see you. And yeah, after that, especially about all this GPT and AI stuff that is currently evolving, and which is quite interesting for me because, well, it affects my job as directly and probably also yourself, all right? So we have a look there, and afterwards I have, as I said, prepared this stream a little bit. So let me quickly check if I find the document where I have everything. Then I don't forget a thing. The outline, perfect. So yeah, we start with the introduction. Hey, welcome. Then we talk about Flutter in general, so that it is created and how it works, what is important, why is Flutter important for the development community, what has Dart to do with it, because the last live stream that we did together was with Dart explanations, how it works. Afterwards, we will talk about how you set up your dev environment. We quickly talk about how you can install the Flutter SDK. We will see how you have the Flutter plugin and the Dart plugin for VS Code or IntelliJ installed. We will set up our IDE correctly so that we can work in it. And we create our first Flutter project. Afterwards, Flutter widgets. We talk about basic Flutter apps creation with column, rows, texts. We create a button, things like that. Maybe we even create a little bit of animation into it and work with packages. And last but not least, we will talk a little bit about best practices. Obviously, whenever you have some questions in the meantime, welcome Jeremiah Ozia from Singapore. Cool. Love Singapore. I have been traveling there twice. Yeah. And I would say let's start maybe with the news update. So what have been there for news, or what have I seen in the last couple of days? First of all, I heard about the Washington Post that Google had a hard time today and they lost a lot of money quickly because their Samsung was thinking about changing to in Bing search instead of Google search, which crashed, I think, $55 million or something like that, the course. So that was quite interesting and crucial. And on the other side, we have Microsoft, and they released, interesting enough, their new Visual GPT. I don't know, I have here the links for you if you would like to have a look. So that means we are able to write into the prompt and we receive, yeah, we can update pictures with it, and we can even upload pictures and check out and ask questions about the picture. We could generate different things from the picture and things like that. And I can maybe quickly show you how that will look. So switching to live scene. Ooh. So as you can see, this is Visual GPT. Pretty cool, actually. So you have here's the demo of the prompt. You can write something inside, upload an image, and then you can ask things of it, or you can remove things from it. All pretty crazy stuff, in my opinion. As I said, at the moment, everything regarding technology and so on and so forth is wild. It's really wild. Another thing that we saw, yeah, was this Google part. I think I did not save it somewhere because I always watch it in German news. But that was quite interesting too, that Samsung is thinking about to switch to Bing. Reason for that is obviously the Bing AI search. And Google with Bard is still not available in Germany, so I still can't test it. So Google Bard still not working, unfortunately. Yeah, Bard isn't currently supported in your country. But if you want to check it out, I also share the link here so that you can have a look if you want to. Great. Besides of that, we are still working with Flutter. I know we could use Chat OpenAI, and if you want, you can directly chat with it and ask it to create your first Flutter app. It will provide you a very good solution, and it will also explain you how everything is done. But we want to get really into it and we want to understand the things, so I will not use any kind of GPT today. Sorry, you have to live with my human little brain, but I hope that will be still enough. So first of all, what is Flutter? If you have never heard about Flutter, you are probably the first time on this channel, so welcome. But Flutter is a multi-platform SDK created from Google. It's a UI SDK and software development kit in that case. And that means you can create apps and applications for mobile phones, for desktop, for web, and for all kinds of desktop. Like, yeah, it transforms the app development process, build, tests, deploy beautiful mobile, web, and desktop and embedded apps from a single code base. While embedded apps, I think I have not seen so many from them. I think Toyota is using it somehow, but yeah, not everywhere the same. Cool. Else it is open source, which is pretty cool. So you can join there and work on the GitHub project. So GitHub Flutter, you will find probably you will find the project with at the moment 152,000 stars. That's quite a lot. I think it's more than React Native or any other framework at the moment has. And what we can also check is the Google Trends, which I also like. If we check out, for example, Flutter. And I think we can switch that with and compare that with React Native or what's else a good framework that Flutter compares. I think Xamarin maybe, and maybe Ionic. And this is now in Germany, which is pretty small. So let's switch to worldwide just to get some interesting trends. And as you can see, Flutter is from the trends perspective still one of the most high valued. And as you can check it out, it's mostly in Europe, Russia, maybe not the best comparison here, but Egypt is very into it. It's interesting that Northern America is mostly Ionic still, so they are still on the other side there. And the biggest interest for Flutter is in Egypt, Japan, and Iran. But that's fine. Flutter is a great tooling, and another trend what you can check out for Flutter if you want to see their future perspective, so why you should learn Flutter, you can check out Stack Overflow, and I think they have interesting statistics. Compare. Don't know if I find it directly, but let's see. No, that's not it. Oh, there is a big blog post from Isaac Lyman. Interesting. Yeah, so he compares the two parts of a course and probably he will give some insights. But what I searched for is actually really Stack Overflow itself. They have like this comparison tool, like questions, statistics or something. Let's see if I find it quickly. Newest statistic, highest scored questions, pricing, integration. Maybe I have to go to it and search for Flutter, for example. I'm not a robot. Maybe it's not anymore possible as I thought. There was like that beautiful graph that showed how many questions were asked in one specific question. Overflow statistics. Maybe I find it like this. Overflow trends. Yeah, that's it. Haha, look at it. So if I search, then I find, right? So with Flutter and React Native, for example, I think they are the most biggest competitors at the moment, and you can see the interest in Flutter is just higher. You could, of course, say, hey, in Flutter you have just more questions because it's more complicated, but I would rather say it is more the interest about in general. So you can see that Flutter has more capabilities, it is more used in different projects, and with that, the interest in the questions is just higher in general. So if you like that too, I share that too with you. Oops, here we go. Just have to put it. Okay, great. So you can see Flutter has quite a good community. It's well documented. You can see in the insights of the repository, more than 122 merge requests are merged in the last week, which is quite amazing. You can see here also who is everyone the contributors, but you can see all the development work that has been done here. A lot of things inside of the engine, repo config and things on like that. You can see all of that inside of GitHub. So you get a direct feeling on what is going on, why a package is at the moment updated and things like that. And as you can see, since 2014, the development is steady. So there is still development work done, which is pretty great. I love that. Okay. So let's check out where I am from my outline. So greetings, I've done that. Introducing the topic, I think we done that. I should encourage you for the engagement and throughout the stream. Okay, so please, people, comment, give this video a like. It helps the video, it helps me all the time. And maybe this brings us to our two supporters, or the one supporter that we have. I'm working a lot with ClickUp at the moment, and ClickUp is my project management tool that I use for nearly everything. I can maybe share that here. Up. Whoop, where is it? I lost it. No. Yeah, sometimes Mac is a little bit of a challenge. So searching my Windows, here we go. So as you can see, this is what I'm using, where I'm writing my documents at the moment, where I have my whole tasks and everything inside of it. So all of this is ClickUp. My whole video production updates, what I'm working at the moment on, where I'm uploading it to and things like that. My goals and what I plan for this month and things like that. Everything inside of ClickUp. So what I want to do is sharing my referral link with you. If you have interest and want to share maybe my love with that, then join ClickUp. Good. Now we have done that. I thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. What do we wanted to talk about? Yeah, live stream Flutter, great. So you saw the benefits, right? And now the question is, why do we even want to learn it? The cool thing is it's very easy to learn, actually. If you are coming from React Native, or if you are coming from JavaScript, Java, all the other languages that are quite big, you have a very easy time to learn Flutter in general. That's pretty cool, because it supports, of course, the interest rate and people who are interested to share things. Also, the getting started is very easy. So if you have never created an app before, with Flutter, you should be very easily set up. Flutter is already developed in 2015, I think it started, as the name was Sky. And since then, there was quite some improvements. And we have this, we have the Flutter Gallery, if you have ever seen that. I always share that, because the Flutter Gallery is more or less the first point of interest, where you can see what it can do for you if you want to develop in Flutter. You see all the nice little apps, you have all the documents inside, can join inside. I'm always impressed how fast this app is at the end, so it's very optimized in a lot of things. And yeah, it shows you a very good option what it can do for you at the end. So it has all the benefits, and if you check out, this is now in the HTML or on the web, and if we check out how the internet is taking that thing, you can see the HTML inside of here is not the real HTML like we know it beforehand. Can I not zoom inside here? That's weird. Huh, sorry, I can't zoom inside of this navigator here. I don't know why. That's interesting. Yeah, of course, there are fantastic, very good question, Ken. So what is my favorite extensions? At the moment here, this is a pretty new development machine, so there is not so many extensions installed for Flutter. I use a lot of Block, so I develop mostly in Flutter Block. I love the package. I love the developer Felix Angelov from it. It works very well for me. So of course I have installed the Block package here, which allows you to create code snippets, which makes it easy to create new blocks, new qubits for you. It wraps things for you and so much more, which helps you, of course, to implement a lot. There I have Flutter and Dart, of course, but I think that was a no-brainer. And what was it? I had also the Flutter enhanced something. Flutter Intel is good if you have internationalization, that helps you a lot. And what do we have else? Flutter, awesome. Flutter snippets, obviously. But this is what you already mentioned, right? We have that. It's not an VS Code extension. I think the other one was IntelliJ one, because it allows you to create the test snippets on the side. I think Affairs, your question is the question most of developers have if they start with Flutter. Should I use this state management or this state management? Honestly, it is a lot of preference. It depends on your team. If you are starting new, a block pattern, so if I just open quickly the pages that we know what we are talking about. So riverpod.dev, oh, that's a little bit large. We have the not block pattern, it was this guy here. And what's the next one? Set state. So if you are choosing between these three, you can't do something wrong. They are all good. Riverpod is pretty new from the good old Remy Roselet. He created a fantastic toolkit around it. What I really like is that Riverpod is now more and more inside of the dev tools. That helps you obviously to understand where your state is at the moment. I like the block pattern a little bit more because it gives me more controls about where the state lives and how it looks like. I find that is a little bit more, but it's more verbose. So you write more code to achieve the same thing like in Riverpod, more or less. So if you are not convinced, you can stay with set state, but I think in the long run, if your app is getting bigger, your widget tree is getting more complicated, set state has some downsides that you will quickly learn, because all the widgets need to know about the state somehow, and you have to pass down the state very deeply, which can lead to a lot of problems. But it's mostly about refactoring and changing things. So if you are happy and it works for you, you can stick with set state, no problem. I hope that answered your question happily. Both of the packages are well maintained. Thank you. No worries, with pleasure. Yeah, I think both packages are well maintained. So long run, I think you will have no problem at all with both packages. As you can see, Remy is there very active inside of the Riverpod one. If you check out the block pattern, I think you will also have a very active community. I think the block is a little bit more active just because the Very Good Ventures company is behind of it. Let's see. Oh no, it's not even that active at the moment. Interesting. Okay, well, but I still believe that the block pattern is still a very good package to use. So I don't think that it's not maintained in general. I don't know that actually. Is Riverpod recommended? I think it was Provider that was recommended. Let's have a look. Management. I have not been a long time inside of the website for Flutter. So we introduce state management, which is the beginning, very section. So let's have a look. This is about that. Good. Set state, inherited model, Redux is recommended, Gedit, MobX, Binder. Wow, okay, there's all state managements that exist, I think. Crazy. Where was the recommendation? Oh no, they put inside Riverpod and Provider, but I think beforehand it was always Provider actually. Yeah, that's crazy. State management is a topic in Flutter that is getting so much discussed, but actually the problem is relatively small. If you start once with one state management tool and you be active in it, you know how it works, you quickly will also understand everything else, all the other state management tools. The reason is, for example, Riverpod and Provider, as far as I know, if we go to pub.dev and look for block in this case, and we jump into the block pattern. Oh, new images on the side. Beautiful. Anyway, if you look at the dependencies, more packages that depend on block. No, that's not it. Oh, it has only the meta dependency. Okay, I told nearly something wrong. But they work all pretty similarly. So if you check the code at the end, how they get executed, for example, with this, not this block. Let's see where we use it in somewhere. Super transition context. Okay, because the block, we need Flutter block in this case. Yeah, and as you can, now it makes sense. Look, and if you check out the Flutter block package, you can see it even depends on Provider. That means it uses Provider under the hood for some of its workings. So if you know how Provider is working, you very quickly will understand how block is working. And if you then have to change to something like Redux, which is also a state management tool that I used also a lot, that is more coming from the React Native side. And here it is, yeah, not the same, obviously, but it's very close to it. So you will quickly understand the benefits and downsides, and you will also understand how to use with this Redux package, more or less. So I think if you learn provider, you don't do anything wrong. If you go for something like block and qubits, I think you have a lot more tooling around it and more, yeah, let's say, how do you call that? Opinionation. Like there has someone already created a lot for you that you have to do. Riverpod gives you more freedom in general, what you are wanting to do and how to bind your data. Okay, I hope that makes it clear, but that is always a very big topic, state management, how to do it. It's part of the architecture, so that means whenever you start with one of the state management tools, it's very hard to separate that or change it again. I have been now twice in a project where we wanted to get out the state management tool that has been inside and replace it by something new. And it was always a lot of work. It was never worth it. So when you have to decide is at the beginning and then you have to stick with it. I would never recommend to switch a package. So if you have block inside of your package and it works, think about upgrading instead of switching to provider or Riverpod or something like that. Oh, sorry for that. My Streamlabs bot is a little bit aggressive, I think. Maybe I have to reduce that. Sorry for that. I will quickly switch that. Take that down. So, but if in the meantime, oh no, the message has been removed here totally. That's unlucky. So I hope now it's a little bit nicer to you. Sorry for the removal. All not so easy, but I can ask the question, what if I get a new job and the project was built on block and I am set state guy? Is it going to be hard to learn block again? Well, in a job you will probably not have... wait, I want to switch. I would like to post that too. So that was the question, just in case. So what if I get a new job and the project was built on block and set state? Maybe I can pin that. Do I see that now here on my stream? That would be amazing. Nah, it doesn't work. Oh, sad. Anyway, that's the question. And well, there is no problem, but in the job, usually set state is not used. The reason for that is it is way too easy to make, whoops, now I removed my own, Anyway. Okay, if you are coming from set state, you learned that, you understand how state management per se works, you know what state is, and that it changes the UI inside of your application all the time, then you have the first step, you know, you have the mentally set up how a declarative UI is working in general. So declarative UI, if you search for it, declarative UI, I love that there is one nice little function somewhere usually. Sadly, it's not here, but what it tells you is that it's the function of the state is the UI. Any preferred? Yeah, I have one. I will talk about that in a second. So we have the declarative UI, and that means whenever you have state that is changing, then the UI will change. If you have understood that and can work with that easily, then it's not so hard to switch to another dependency package, because all the other state management tools do the same thing at the end. They just control how your data is flowing so that the UI can update at the end. Sorry. So regarding folder structure, if you are coming ever to the point where you have to set up a folder structure, there are a lot of different approaches. Usually what you have is these three layers. I always recommend them. You have the presentation layer where your UI resides in, business logic. In any case, you will have that somewhere. That's the things where you really implement what you want to achieve. Like, I don't know, you get some data, you want to remix it, and at the end you want that the UI is showing it. And then you have the data structure, where you have repositories and data providers. Data providers and repositories, well, usually the data layer is only the point where you know where the data comes from. Is it coming from a local database? Is it coming from an API? Is it coming from Firebase? Things like that will be handled in the data layer. And that means this is usually the 3 layers that you have. What happens also is, what you can also do is you do it feature based, like you create a feature, and inside of this feature you have then somehow these 3 layers separated. A good example is, for example, if you check the very good CLI package, it will create you a Flutter file or a Flutter project, more or less. And inside of this Flutter project, you have a lot of, let me quickly do that. So let's say, we resolve that quickly, shouldn't take too long. Great, now let's go to projects, Flutter. And now inside of here, we want to create, very good, we create a quick project. I don't know, what do we have? YouTube stream, zack. I think, you know, create is the name. Making it a bit bigger. But it will create you now a Flutter project, and a very good company has a very, let's say, strong opinion about how your project should look like. And hopefully, no, sad. I hope that I have Visual Studio Code in my CLD, but I don't have that yet. So let's open quickly the project, Flutter YouTube stream. And if we take a look here, inside of the lib folder, it looks already quite different. You have the main development, production, and staging. Then you have the counter, which is the feature. Inside you have a barrel roll, which just exports the files inside. You have the page, and you have the qubit inside. So everything related to the UI is more or less residing inside of this counter part. And what you can do then else is creating your repository where you get the data from. And if you have some block, you can just create that. Please make sure this block has nothing to do with the package block. So this is just a name for business logic. So there you can have a name whatever you want. Usually we call it domain just because it's easy, or me and whoever I know in the teams call it domain, because here things are happening, like for example, mapping from the repository data to your data that you want to use, and maybe making calculations and things like that. In an app, this domain layer can be sometimes very thin, so there is not so much to do from time to time, but it's anyway a good idea to have that, just in case there is a lot to do. Okay, I hope that made it a little bit clear. There are a lot of different opinions about folder structure, and in my opinion it doesn't really matter how you structure your data as long as it makes sense for you and your team. That means if you are happy with a feature-based setup where you have the counter, and inside of the counter you would have maybe a repo and a domain layer, if this works for you, then fine. You can also remove all the folders and do it in files. If it works for you and your team, great, do it. Yeah, so there is a lot of things to talk about, and that was that. Block has also, as I said, these layers in their mind. What I also recommend to you whenever you start a new project and you are completely new is search for references. That means you search for people who are smarter than you. Usually that's not me, I'm just someone who explains people things, but I have less experience in very big projects. So you could check, for example, Wanderers app, I think that's the name, and it's created from G Skinner. So Gskinner is a very big company that collaborates a lot with Flutter and Dart community to create big projects. And in this case, the Wanderers app, you have maybe heard from it. It's a very beautiful app that you can download and set up. You have here this showcase website. It's all written in Flutter. You can use it. Yeah, it has a video, things like that. I don't want to jump too much into it, but it's a very beautiful app that works. And you can now check how they created their things. You can see their README file, they have a big picture, they have some information what it does, where you can download the app, how to install the app. As you can see, you need the channel in beta at least to make it work. You can run it in Android and iOS, obviously. You can enable Impeller. Impeller is the newest graphic engine for Flutter and Dart. You can switch to master and things like that. And if you search for the file structure, you can jump into the lib. And we talked already about logic and repository layer. So let's see if we find that someone here. So we have here, for example, the UI. That could be the same thing like our UI at the end. What do we have? I think we had view is the name here. So inside of here, we can see we have some comments. Oh, there is happening a lot. So it seems that there is a lot of things done, but we have these screens. So home menu, for example. And as you see inside of the screens, we have it now feature-based sorted, like artifacts, collection, editor, things like that. And you can check out how they create their widgets, how they set everything up. And the cool thing about Gskinner in general, because they collaborate so close with Flutter and Google team, is that they push their things always inside of open source projects. So I also post that. And what I also want to do, not only that, I would like to put it in the relevant links. You can see I created this nice little app. Yeah, no, you can't see it because I don't share it. Sorry for that. Oh, ClickUp, make it small, get it up. I created in ClickUp this nice little list of all the links, and I will try to collect all the relevant links into here so that we can, or you can just copy them later. And with that, you have the Flutter gallery. Zack. Oh, that's a weird link. Okay, I have to recreate them later, but just writing them down for me. Then insights, Stack Overflow. What do we have else? Bard, Google, and maybe the Visual Jet GPT could be also interesting. Cool. So, just that I don't forget them later. Because my brain is not that big. Anyway, coming back to Gskinner. So that means you have all these things here and you can not only copy them, you can see how a big app is working at the end. And also why they created their own things for some certain parts. Like for example, the app Scaffold. Actually, there is a scaffold, so why create their own thing? So they used a key subtree, value key, they created all of these things. And now it's the question, why? So you could check, for example, what is that for a class in general? Useful for attaching a key to an existing widget. Okay. And how did Gskinner do it? They have this key here, and then they created a theme. And so they created everything from scratch. And most of the things you can understand by just reading the code that they created for your app, if you want. And another benefit is they're using usually features, issues and things like that. And they have specific tools like Unsplash download services. Sometimes you can read also into that, because then you can see also, hey, they also create their own scripts just to get some things done, you know. Then we have the logic part. And here it is, you know why they probably don't have a repository layer? Because I could imagine that they don't get data from external sources. So they only have local sources somewhere. But there is API logic. Okay, forget what I said seconds ago. So here we can see singletons registered with getIt. That means they want to receive that from anywhere in the application. And this is some kind of dependency injection model with singletons. Service locator is it called, I think. But in general, I'm talking now a bit too much about that without knowing so much. I can't find a good MRZ package for desktop applications. So what is an MRZ package? MRZ, machine readable passport. Huh. Machine readable zone is a particular area in an identity that encloses the document holder and personal data. Okay. And I have never needed that. There is a Flutter MRZ scanner, machine readable zones from identity passport using iOS and probably it's not anymore supported, or 5 months ago. Sorry, that's a very specific question. But if I check that out, Olaxe was working on it, so I could imagine that is a quite good package to use at the end. Sorry that it didn't work well for you all. Unfortunately, I don't have testing devices at the time. Please feel free to create new tickets if you have, yeah, so you can create pull requests to it and try to solve the issues here. But Alexa is pretty active, so I could imagine that you get their support very easily. But yeah, very specific question. Another thing, if you check out the G-Skinner team in general, you can see they have also the Flutter Folio if you want to check out for responsive design and how you can work with different accessibility features, then this one is for you. Cool, what do we have else? Yeah, you can create that for all the different platforms. You can, I think somewhere you can even jump into it. Ah yeah, here's the showcase. Pushing the boundaries, Flutter Folio. I thought they had a website, don't they? Interesting. Ah, here. So you can see you can sign in, you have all that, and if I make that smaller now, like a professional web developer, you can see they switch now the theme as soon as you get in mobile mode and things like that. So very big in responsive design. Also a very good opportunity to check out more. So all the G-Skinner projects, always interesting to have a look into. Cool. Now I talked already a lot. We have been at state management. We have been already in responsive design, in all the other parts. So let's try to circle a little bit back. I know it's boring, but let's have a look into, I think we had the overview. Let's bring that up. So I think we had the brief introduction. We have the importance in Flutter and mobile. I think that makes sense. Dart programming language. Well, Dart is the foundation language of Flutter. And well, as I said, it's easy to learn if you are coming from Java, if you are coming from Python or any other language. I think it's quite easy to jump into it. Even though with the newest null safety things, I think it's getting a little bit more complicated to understand why errors occur. But I think you will solve that without a problem. So then let's see how we can install Flutter. And there are actually multiple ways. One of the ways is of course going to flutter.dev. We are here already. Check out the getting started guide, searching your platform that you are interested in. Let's say you are on macOS like me. Then you can, if you are on Apple Silicon, you have to install some additional things. You can download it here via a direct zip, but has a different problem for me. What I would always recommend is using the archive via GitHub. This is how I'm installing Flutter in general. I like that a lot. But that means you always have just one version on your computer, and that has a big downside. So if I check, for example, Flutter Doctor, you will see, hey, you have here, oh, the Android toolchain is not correctly set up. Interesting, so I should maybe do that too. So you know what, if I'm having you, let's do that quickly. Doesn't work, great. Probably I have to install Android Studio code. That's the problem, Android Studio. Anyway, but what you can see is we work now at the version 3.7.10. But what means? That means our application that we have to create in Flutter is now full null safe. We can't change that. We have to work now null safe. But let's say we have a project or a customer who has an old Flutter project and he did not have the time to upgrade yet. So that means he is maybe on Flutter version 2.5. Not very recommended, but it could be. So what do we do here? Well, there is a tool called Flutter Version Manager. And probably if you are working in web development, you have maybe heard from the Node Version Manager, the NVM, and it's nearly the same thing. Node Version Manager is checking for the correct version of the node, and you can update it specifically. And for Flutter, it's the same thing. You can use this nice little package to get the newest or the version that you need for Flutter and Dart. So as you can see here, a lot of people contributed, and let's see how we install that. We can take that via brew in that case. We can use Windows for it or Linux. And I will use just Dart in that case. So to update it correctly, to show it you, we clear. And now I enter that. And with that, we download now in our FVM inside of our Dart packages. And as you can see, we have now this manager installed. And what we can do now is we can install different versions of Flutter. So if we FVM list something, FVM, no SDK has been installed, even though that Flutter Doctor is working. Why is that the case? If we check my folder structure, and I have always this tools folder where my Flutter resides in, and all the other things that I install for programming. And inside of here, we find the Flutter version that I have installed. But as I said at the beginning, I installed it via Git. And that means we have this sethrc file in Mac. And inside of here, this are our environment variables. And one of them has this pubcache inside and this Flutter bin. Great, but we don't want that, right? We want another version. So what can FVM do for us here? If I say now FVM, what do we see? Releases. I think we get all the versions. So here we have all the versions that are currently at the moment available. We can see the stable version at the moment is 3.7.11. So let's say we would have to need the dev version. No, I think we need a version on version, let's say 2.10.5. So just one major version down. We can say FVM install, and we passed in this version number. And as you can see, it downloads now Flutter with this version. And what happens now here is if we check out our file structures, then we should see somewhere the FVM package. Here we go. And inside of here we have versions and installs here Flutter. So it slowly downloads all of it for this version. And now inside of our project, we can specify that it should always use this version. So we don't come into any problems here. So if this is the version, we can use it now. And so if we have 6 customers and everyone has its own version, with FVM, we can manage that. That's pretty cool, pretty easy, and very convenient, absolutely. So let's see and install that quickly. I hope the internet connection is not broken now. Coffee. Yeah, it will tell me now that I can update, obviously, but we don't want that. So now something interesting happens. If I enter Flutter, and this is now Flutter Doctor usually, what we can see is the Flutter version. Okay, Flutter -v. Flutter -, here we go. Now we can see here we are still on 3.7.10. So that means this Flutter here still goes to the version that I have installed myself. But if I check FVM, then we have this version. But as you can see, there's something missing. So we can use the version 2. What was it? All of that. 2.10.5. And now project uses this version. So if we check out the project that we are in, the YouTube stream, if I'm opening up that in VS Code, we can see that there is a new folder .fvm. And inside of here we have the fvm config. It tells us that this whole project is using this version. But another interesting part is this arrow here, because that is not a real folder. This is just a reference, like a link to where we want to execute. And as you can see, the symbolic link is using a package of Flutter. And if we check out the version inside, it's 2.10.5. That's great. So with that, we have the opportunity to use that Flutter version here in this project by using FVM, Flutter Doctor, for example. it starts now to download, but with this FVM prefix, we say, please use the version of Flutter from this project. And if we are running the project, we can see we are now on this version. Another option would be that we activate this version globally. We can do that FVM global, and then we can say, we could specify the version that we want to use. Global 1. And if I select version, yep, let's take the first. Has been set at global. To use global SDK FM, you should change it to, okay, great. So let's switch that quickly, just to make it clear what we can do with it. If I now go to the set HRC, I have to remove this line here and have to, because this is the Flutter version from myself, and I would like to replace it with this. So that means now we are using the default version of FVM. So if I close that, now I have to restart the terminal. And if I execute Flutter now, Flutter version, we should see we are on 2.10.05. Great, but we want, of course, to get the newest version, releases. Oh, what's that now? Ah, obviously, because I removed that now, my Flutter version is broken, so the Dart part is removed. So let's get my version back. I think let's quickly switch to tools, Flutter. So that's here. Tools, Flutter, bin. I think that's fine. Remove that, terminal, and my Flutter version should work again. Flutter version, great stuff. Here we are again. All right, that was quite a lot, but with that you have the opportunity always get it in the newest version and be still able to work on older versions if this is necessary. So keep in mind, FVM is a helper that could help you and save you time in the future. So let's add that as a link. Flutter version manager. If you ever have questions here. Good. I think with that we have installed Flutter pretty seamlessly and should be ready to work with it. What do we have? Setting up the IDE. As I said, the only thing that you need is actually Visual Studio Code. If you don't know it, Visual Studio Code is a coding engine or an editor created from Microsoft. And it has all the things that you need, like IntelliSense, run and debug, build, and extensions. Or Android Studio is also possible. If you have a bigger machine with more power, I in general recommend Android Studio because it also allows you to update and all the SDKs that you need for Android development and things like that. And probably I should also download it once. So because there you have the opportunity to also work in Flutter. And inside of VS Code, I'll quickly make a restart. We can add extensions, and I showed that at the beginning already. You need the Flutter extension, which then automatically gets also the Dart extension. And with these two, you are set because they contain all the IntelliSense and all the debugging options and things like that, snippets and more that you need for Flutter and Dart development in general. Good. And with that, you are already set up to start developing, actually. Shouldn't be not too complicated. So we created already our first project with this very good CLI, which is also should be also part of our good CLI of our here relevant links list. So opinionated project structure with the very good CLI. Good. But in general, you don't want to create a project with all that at the beginning, right? It still works and it has everything, but honestly, who needs at the beginning, if you have never developed in Flutter, a development, production and staging environment, and who wants to set up all these things? It takes time, you know, if you want to get something easily done, this is not the easiest way. If you use very good CLI, you have a bootstrap function, you have block already implemented and things like that. So it's quite heavy lifting if you want to start out with something. Because as you know, if you use a tool, you need to understand it. Okay, so let's close that folder quickly and let's create a new Flutter project. I do that with Command-Shift-P. You open up this nice little window, and if you enter Flutter New Project, you can start and select your thing that you would like to do. You can have an application empty, where you don't have so much tests, where you don't have so much comments, but just a bare bone project to get started with. This is usually recommended if you are already a little bit experienced and you just want to create an easy project with not so much fuss in it. You can create a module. And in the module, you can pass it or add a module inside of Android and iOS. So that means you have an app in app. The helpful thing of that is if you have, for example, a Flutter developer who only can develop in Flutter, or you want to switch slowly your app that you have already created to Flutter, you could create a module and inject your Flutter app more or less into it. And you have the benefit that you don't have to switch completely off from a native development into Flutter development. The next part is package. Package is that what you can download from pub.dev. So block pattern is, for example, a package, or provider, Riverpod, everything of that is a package. And with this template, you can directly start with a package if you don't want to create a full-fledged app at the end. A plugin is shareable code that uses the API Dart code underneath to receive and work with the platform specific parts. So if you want, for example, access the camera of your phone or the sensors of your phone, then you can create a plugin for that. And the skeleton generates a list view, detailed view that follows. Okay, never use the skeleton actually. Let's create a skeleton just to test it. So I use it here, and now we write a name, skeleton first time. So let's create a project. Great. You can see down here that's the command that's getting executed. And if we press F5 now, it will start the project. But I first want to read a little bit into it because I'm curious what that actually is. There is a settings controller, which will include settings to multiple Flutter widgets. Okay, settings controller, never heard about that. Then we have the load settings, which loads the user preferred theme while the splash screen is displayed. Okay, we have the My app. Animated builder with the settings controller, build material app, restoration scope. Okay, there is already quite some stuff inside. More information, detailed information. Interesting, let's start that up on macOS and let's see what we have here actually. Usually you start up with a basic counter application in Flutter and Dart, which is also pretty cool and helps you already to understand the easy with set state and everything. I have never seen this one, but it looks a little bit more advanced. So if you want to have another folder structure that helps you somehow, I think that's the way you can do it. I saw something which I would like to remove quickly. If we go to material page router, this is the default router, right? Yeah, good. I would like to remove the debug label, debug false. Yep, thank you. So we have this settings part up here where we can switch through the themes. Oh, look at that. It has already an integrated dark and light theme. We have this sample. Okay, so it's not too complicated from the service that we have here. But it already show you what it can do for us. A service that stores and retrieves users settings. Okay. Update theme. Use the shared preference page to persist. Okay, so there is a lot of things not implemented yet, so we can connect that as we like. Interesting, interesting. Update theme mode, inform listeners has occurred. Yeah, so this is just the basic change notifier package. I think this is a little bit out of date. Personally, I would not recommend to use this package or this template to get started, because it feels that is not anyway the way that Flutter would like to showcase things, in my opinion. But okay, we have also this package, and as you can see, it's quite smooth to create these things. So up, arm RF, skeleton first time. So with that, we lost the folder here, close the editor, and we close the folder. Great stuff. And let's create a new project where we would like to have an application. And we do it also here, and we call the Flutter application YouTube stream first, something like that. Okay, why this package? Why with application with comments? Because I would like to go quickly over everything that we can see here, and we can start it. And as you can see, the easy application more or less fits into the main.dart file. So there is everything that we need included. And because there is so much to tell you for everything that is here on the side, we would like to have the easy structure here. From the app, we have just a text with a button text, and if we press on this nice little icon down here, we increase the number. I think so far so good. Flutter app, everyone knows it. The counter app is famous in Flutter community because everyone is using it. It's the app to go to at the end. I don't like the debug label, so let's remove that. But let's have a look into the folder structure. You get a Dart project usually with the standard folders for Android, iOS, Linux, macOS, and Windows, and obviously web nowadays. You can activate and deactivate that if you have ever done that, or if you want that, by Flutter config, and here you can enable and disable different versions. So if you say you don't want to have Android and you disable that with this flag here, then it will remove or it will not create the Android inside of your folder structure. Same things for Windows, macOS, and so on and so forth. So with that, you can remove a lot of things from your folder structure. And you can do it also here, because if you, for example, I know I don't want to do that for Windows, so I can delete the Windows folder here. And with that, I have more space. We don't have to push it to GitHub, for example. And if we know in general we don't work in the desktop applications, we can also remove all the other desktops. Or we know we don't work for iOS or Android, we'll just remove them. That will not hurt your project. They are just completely relevant for this specific platform. So in my case, I want to use for macOS, so it doesn't hurt if I remove all the other packages. But in general, you have all the platforms installed. It creates all these nice little folders for it. And there is always the code that is relevant for the specific environment. Okay. Now, then what do we have else? We have the build folder. Inside of the build folder, there will be the end result of your application. Let's say you want to create your app, and as you saw, I pressed F5, and if I press F5, this folder is getting generated. The reason for that is the debug that we have is a bundle. It's created out of all the files, lib files, main files, packages, and so on, and it takes all these files together, puts it into a package, and this package is getting called a build and be delivered inside of this folder. So when I build for macOS, it will be here inside. If I build for iOS, it will be here inside. If I build for Android and APK, it will be here inside. And that means there are optimized code usually, or not so optimized code, depends on what you're building. But it will contain, for example, the settings, the informations, what you have entered in Xcode, what you have entered in Android Studio, things like that will all be bundled inside of this macOS. And additionally, Dart per se is not readable from a computer, right? Dart is just a language to help us programmers to write something for the computer. So it is good for us, it's not so good for the computers. And what happens now with Dart is it's getting compiled inside of a compiler. So you can imagine there is a program called compiler, and it takes this Dart code and creates out of this Dart code now something that the computer can read. And with that, you have this compiler. That's why Dart is a real programming language, other than, for example, JavaScript, which can be compiled, but JavaScript is a so-called script language, and it starts from top and goes to bottom. No compiler in between. The browser knows exactly how to read it. Okay, so much to compilers. And this build package that we create, so this is what happens here inside, is at the end the outcome. That's the thing that a computer can read. And if we check out, for example, some parts of it, let's see if we can read something here. Headers, modules, so we have this. Now this is more how it is getting built. Logs, info-p, open anyway, text build, so ignore. So you can see, yeah, well, even my editor has problems with reading all of this, and yeah, so you can see not everything is understandable from our side. So that's that. I think that was clear, and the same thing happens for iOS and Android. Okay, then what do we have else? We have a test folder. The test folder is quite interesting because here we collect all our tests that we write for our application. That can be unit tests, widget tests, and even end-to-end tests. To be really honest with you, the integration tests will be usually held in a separated folder. If you ever create integration tests that are running up your application in an emulator, a simulator, or on a phone or on the computer, and tests your use cases, so it will go through the application, clicks real inputs into it. They are usually the most expensive ones. Then we're coming to the lower ones that are widget tests, where you create a test that only tests a specific component inside of your application. For example, a text widget shows always the correct text, or if you press a button that the text is changing accordingly. Then we have unit tests, and they are the smallest part, usually for your domain logic to test if the domain is correctly executed and working correctly. Tests are getting more and more important and have been already important beforehand, because test-driven development, we developers should always write tests. But now with AI coming into play, tests are getting even more important because the AI can do weird things from time to time, and tests are just so important to keep them in track, to know that this needs to work correctly. Okay, but what do we test actually? Well, we test what happens inside of the lib folder. Lib for library and bin for binary contains all the information where we program our things out. So in this case, in the main function, every Dart project starts with this main function, and inside of here we have run app, where we pass in our app. And as you can see, it is already the first widget that occurs to us. Everything in Dart is a widget, and we have two components of that. We have the stateless widgets, and we have the stateful widgets. Stateless widgets are widgets that do not change on user interaction, they stay usually the same, and stateful widget has a state underneath of it. Well, this is the foundation of Flutter. If you have, of course, some state management tool, you can make a stateless widget also contain state and things like that, or react on state. Good. Now, inside of here, we have a so-called build function. The build function is inside of every widget very important because it's getting executed multiple times in some cases, and it creates us all the widgets that we want to display on our screen. In this case, a material app with a theme data where we have a title inside of it, and so on and so forth. As you can see, material app in this case is also a class, and if I jump inside and have a look what material class is, thanks to all the documentation we can do that. But more interesting is even, no, I don't find it now. Ah, here it is. Material app itself is also a widget. So that means in Flutter, if you create an application, everything is a widget. Easy as that. So you have everything is a stateful widget or a stateless widget. Material app in our case is now a stateful widget. It has properties, like for example this debug show checked mode banner, which is nothing else than if I want to show, if I make that true, we have up here this debug banner, and if I put it onto false, we see it is gone. And then inside of here, we create another widget called My Homepage in this case. And inside of My Homepage, which is a stateful widget. And why? Because we count something. So you can see this 15 inside here is a state that we control. And at the moment it's 20. And as you can see, we have in Flutter two options. We have hot restart and hot reload. Why is this important? Because if I hot restart, which means we changed something in our code, then it will not change the 20. It will keep the state. But if we press on hot restart, what we can see is the application is refreshed and the state is also removed. So now we can change things here. We have here a method that increments our counter whenever, and we see there is a method called setState. And this is the default state management tool inside of Flutter. setState will now trigger all builds. So it will check all the things that has a stateful widget, updates the number here inside, and then it will tell Flutter, please rebuild this component or this widget. And it will use the build function for that. So it will change the number, and then it will re-trigger the build method. And inside of here, we can see that this number is somewhere used down here inside of the text. And that's also the declarative approach. That means we press the button down here, and with that we tell Flutter, the number has changed, please update. Good. So much to that. So lib folder. Here we create our application in the long run, and here we are working with all kinds of things. Then we have a bunch of files that are interesting. Git ignore, for example. If you want to use Git, that's a tool to create copies of your code and share it with others and make it also reliable that you can get it everywhere else, or if you have different devices. Here inside you define which files should not be uploaded. So for example, the build folder, you don't need that on every machine because every machine builds their own build, so you don't need that actually. So that's why it is here excluded from the .pub stuff. Also pubcache and pub is excluded. Reason for that is you don't need the dependencies everywhere. You only define your dependencies in the pubspec.yaml. This file is like a reference file. You say inside of here, you collect all your metadata for your project. For example, name, description, where you want to publish it, which version it has, which environment you're working on, and now what dependencies you have. What are dependencies? We don't want to write our code all alone. If every developer would write every code again new and new, we don't want to do that. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. That means there are websites like the pub.dev that I showed you before. And on this side, you can search for packages, like for example, the geolocator package here. And someone, in this case, baseflow.com, has created a so-called repository on GitHub. And they said, okay, this code that we create, you are allowed to use. So you can use that, and it allows you to get locations and things like that. And this is, of course, code. You know, you have to copy and get all this code information. And yeah, now you could say, okay, I downloaded this package completely and put it inside of GitHub in my repository and control all the code of it. But that would be a lot of, first of all, you need the space to store that somewhere. Like, it would be bad for GitHub, especially because they have the other project already. And it would be unnecessary. So everyone can download the dependencies he wants. And by adding a dependency here inside of this file, the only thing we do is we say there is a reference. We need, when we install our app, this package also included. And what happens then, it's, as you can see down here, probably, this has a line problem. It resolves the dependencies and it downloads these dependencies now. And what does that mean is it really downloads it on your computer, puts it inside of a folder, and now you are able to use the geolocator package wherever you want that. So you have the code really on your physical device. whenever you execute pub.get. So these are these commands. Visual Studio Code is very fast with that. It does it directly automatically for you, so you don't have to do that actually. And with that, now you can access the whole geolocator code that has someone else created, and you don't have to share it with everyone. And with easy foundations, you have now this package for everyone available. Dev dependencies, on the other hand, are dependencies, same thing, same behavior, but for things that you only need for development. So in your finished product, you will get rid of these packages. You don't need that. For example, Flutter test. Not every end user who is using the app on your iOS or Android device will need the Flutter test package. You only need that during development time. Okay, then there is, for example, the Flutter lins package is also one dev dependency. Then there are more metadata, as I said. The pub.spec.yaml is a metadata collection, such as, hey, you want material design usage, or you want to use assets and things like that. So things that are important to create your app, but you don't necessarily want to see as a user at the end. One remark for YAML files, if you are going here and you have a separate line, for example up here, I showed the error already at the beginning, but if I add this geolocator, make sure in a YAML file you always have 2 space bars in it. So if I save that and make pub.get, I should receive an error actually. Yeah, down here. So as you can see, there is now an issue. And the error message is also very vague, I would say. What it means is here's only 1 space inside. But in YAML files, you always have to make 2 spaces. So if I make another one and save the whole thing and scroll a bit down, now it will resolve. So that means the next step here from Flutter to SDK is also 2 spaces. That helps in the long run to don't make mistakes here. But I think the tooling like VS Code should be very clever to solve these problems for you. Okay, for all the files that have these lines in front of it, there is just meta information where your packages, for example, are residing. You can see as I said, the download from pub.get happens in a folder called .pubcache. And inside of here, now the file is existent. So that means if I go to my Finder and jump into this location, let's search for it, pubcache here, and we search for hosted pub.dev, and here inside for geolocator, we can see that this geolocator 902 is completely downloaded, and this is the file structure that we could see in GitHub too. And they have also their pubspec.yaml. And if we open that, we can see they have their own dependencies. Oh, I don't want to do that. No. Hey, Nicole, long time no see. Hope you are well. Yeah, the same thing for the plugin dependencies, this generated file. So you don't really have to take care of them. Metadata, also things that are generated, and you will probably never have to change that. Analyzes options is an interesting one. Inside of here, you define linting rules. So they are rules that you would like to put into your project where you say, okay, I want that, for example, we have more than 80 lines of space to write things. Then you can do that inside of here. You have the Flutter lins package usually installed directly, so you can check that also on GitHub. You can see all the linting rules that they use, like always use package imports, avoid print, things like that. And it will show you these little blue underlines or errors depending on how you set it up. So if I use somewhere here, let's see the floating button here. There's this increment. Let's say I will print here hello world. You can see there is now this blue curly lines underneath of it. And let's say I would like to not have this problem, then I can change that inside of the analysis option, inside of these blue lines here. Very good. I can say avoid print and say false. And if I do that, you can see the blue lines are removed. So this is usually something you discuss with your team, and then set it up accordingly, how you would like to do it, how you would like to work in, and how is it going. Yeah, Nicole, I'm very good actually. Starting with YouTube now full-time makes me really happy, honestly. It's quite a proud moment for me. I'm just a bit afraid that, yeah, I will not be that financially stable. With the child, it's always a little bit of a challenge. But that's okay. How about yourself? Do you have a cool project that you are working currently on? So that's that. Then we have the README file. The README file is also always important because that is the, if you go to GitHub, these files here that shows all these nice little things are always the README MD file. So please keep that up to date, help other developers to start and update here everything that you want to share about the project, what you want, how to get started with your project, what packages you are use and things like that. The bad thread, Flutter wife, sounds weird. Rie, Eminder, what's that? Flutter wave. Don't know that. But thank you, Fred. Your Flutter app has 500,000 downloads. Great. So was it worth the work? Then we have that, Flutter log. But with 500,000 downloads, you can start slowly with a team more, or do you still work alone on that app? So that's that. So let's see where we are in my planning here in the meantime. So creating a new project, I think we talked about it. Widget tree is interesting. I think the stateless and stateful we talked. Context is important, so we can take that in a sec. Oh, I can imagine that that works well. I was surprised in New Zealand how much people like agriculture's apps and how important they are. So congratulations, that's massive. Okay, so I talked already about stateless and stateful widgets, and as you can see, there is this key element going into it. So let's start up this application and let's have a look inside of the widget tree, because that is quite important. Did we have started already? Okay. Ah, yeah. No. Flutter, can't we see the inspect widget, launch emulator, list, open DevTools? Yeah, so let's open the DevTools. Mahtab is at work. She works for MediaMarkt Saturn and is there very much active. And besides of that, yeah, still have a child. So a lot of work at the moment. So cool. The widget tree. I want to share that with you because most people don't really know what the DevTools are or if they need to use them. And as you can see, we have the Flutter app here on the right side. And in the DevTools, we have a representation like inside of the DevTools for a web application. We have all the widgets that we can have created inside of here. And we can even transform and change them accordingly. So if I have, for example, here the scaffold, and inside of the scaffold is a center, there is a column, and we have these two texts, right? You have pushed the buttons times, and we have the text here. Now we have the chance to even change things inside of this column. So for example, I can change the cross-axis alignment to start, and we get a crash. That worked perfectly well. Good job, Max. So what happens now? Did I crash the app or it just didn't work? So stretch. Ah yeah, now it worked something. So if I update this here, it will automatically update here on the left side. So if I use end, doesn't work. I should maybe not use center. So, and then we have the main axis alignment. I could say it starts at the end, at the start, or the main axis alignment is at the end. So it's on the bottom. It's in the center. things like that. So I can change inside of the DevTools a lot of things already, just to see how it turns out in the end result. But what we can also do is, so we can, for example, select a widget inside of this mode, and I can say I'm interested inside of this nice little text box down here. What a great idea. Does it also send notifications about what you need to say? Like you have beautiful eyes today, or I don't know, your socks look very fitting together. I like the idea. It's quite easy, and I can imagine a lot of people will use it. Maybe you can combine it with ChatGPT and it sends you recommendations what to say specifically. Love the idea, really. Okay, but now back to the widget tree. That means we have here a tree, right? And this is called a widget tree, all these different things. And why is it so important? Because it connects all the things together. If you think about state management, if you have provider, for example, you usually have a wrapper surrounding all of these, or Riverpod, you have also a wrapper around your widget tree. And thanks to the context that the widget tree shares, so if we go to our code, we can see that inside of the build function, we always receive this build context. And the build context has knowledge about every widget inside of this widget tree until this point where you are at the moment. That's pretty cool, because inside of this context, you get, for example, knowledge about your state by context.read for provider or Riverpod, or for qubits and things like that. And this allows you to get information lower in the widget tree. So that is pretty cool. Also for navigation, the context is very important. And the context in general is super important because you can do so much wrong things with it. I think at the beginning I had some very weird problems with it. But here you can see the widget tree, and it helps you to understand that. Some best practices regarding the widget tree: make sure to keep it as shallow as possible. Don't do it too extensively in the bottom, because as you can see, it's getting very big very quickly. And with that, you have already removed some problems. The DevTools have also other options, like for example, the performance, which we can't see already. We get some problems here, reddish. The problem is we are not in profile mode, and this app is just running now in a debug mode, so it's quite slow in general. With the CPU profiler, that is useful if you have, for example, long-running tasks, or you see that the battery drainage is very high of your application, then you can check that with the CPU profiler. You have memory. Here you can see what is everything stored, and if you have, for example, too much memory usage, you could check how to reduce it thanks to this overview here. Network is when you make a network requests like API calls and things like that. They will be visible here. You can see how long they took, which URL you executed, and which method you used. General logging, also quite simple to understand. Everything that happened more or less on side of your application is added here. It's whatever happens inside of your application in general. Then we have the app size. I think you need to upload a size because that is the APK file that will be checked in general. Okay, but this gives you already a good overview about the Flutter tools. Very useful tool, and in my opinion, very much underappreciated. Okay, good. So where have we been? What have we explained? Let's have a look. So that was the widget tree and the contexts. Cool. So let's see, let's build something. Or do you have a good idea what we should build? Let's remove some of the comments because I think they are a little bit too exhaustive. If you are interested, you can always read them. And I will do the following now. How much time do we have? Half an hour. Okay, gotcha. So remove all this text. Let's make a marker in our stream info. So that I will not forget this mark. 1 second. Click, click, click. So. And now back here. Good. So we already talked about this app, right? We have here this on the side, and let's keep that open. And what I also would like to do is removing the dev tools. Sad, I made a mistake. I have to quickly open it again because we have that selected. Oh, cool, we have that in VS Code even. Look at that, I didn't even have to create and open the dev tools. We can use it in VS Code directly. You just press this nice little icon here. Okay, can I close it? Yeah, good. So now what we can do is we want to create some cool application, right? So let's search for Dribble and just take any kind of mobile experience, and we want to recreate parts of it. Not being too fancy for now. Probably I have to log in first. Let's do that quickly. Nah, too much stuff. Mobile app basic. Maybe we find it with this images. Look at that, a login page. I think that's always possible. So let's see this guy. Some inspirations, great stuff. So let's copy that image for now. So, and let's see how we can recreate this image more or less. So we have this nice little round part here. We have the login naming, and down here we have username and password with remember me, login button, and so on and so forth. And let's see if we can recreate that. So first of all, we have to understand how Flutter is handling their UI. And for that, we have to check a little bit what this is. So first of all, what we can see already is we have a background in gradient, right? So that's the first thing we can have an eye on. So we could make this background with the gradient. Then it seems that we have a column here, right? We have different widgets here that are going from top to down. And they contain different things like, where is it? Can I make that easy? So we have this part, then we have this part. Definitely you need a scaffold without app bar, but a column. Exactly, so we need some kind of column here with all these things. Here, it looks like we need a row because we have a checkbox and then we have a text here. Then we have, again, part of the column, just a button, just a button. Here it looks also like a row again because we need the first text and then we need this link-like sign-up thing. In my opinion, not the best setup for mobile because the sign-up is a little bit small, very hard to click, but yeah, fine for me for now. So first things you do usually is to check what types of elements you need. And in our case, as we said, we have this gradient. We can use a scaffold with that, and a column. And the column should be in the center. Yeah, we can do that, but we could also say that the cross alignment. So this is the cross alignment of a column, like in this direction. We could say that this one is in the center, right? So exactly. And then this one can start at the start, and we need some case of spacing up here, and then some spacing here maybe. Yeah, and we will see how that works. All right, so let's have a look into our code, how we could achieve that. I will put the screenshot on the bottom so that I have a look on that, or can I make that smaller? Add that here, and we put that up. Something like this, so that we have it always in our eyes. Or you don't see it, but you can imagine that it's always here, right? So I can do it like this. Then it's a little bit more connected. No, I can't do it. Unfortunately. Can I put it? I have an idea. I can do it. Let's wait. I can do it here. Give me 1 second. I want to play a bit around. That's a cool thing. Can I save that? Perfect. Where is it saved? In the downloads folder probably. So let me give a second. New source, image, check. I do now again fancy YouTube stuff. This one, great. Look at that, beautiful. A little bit smaller. Put it behind everything. Somewhere there. Haha. So. Ha! Worked. You can't see it yet. Let's click on the button. Here we go. Sorry for that. And with that, we have the image here. I think we could make it even smaller, something like that. But, you know, you get the drill. And with that, we can work on that. And as the bad thread already gave us a lot of input here. So let's try to implement that. So in general, we can use what we have already, but let's remove for now my homepage, because I think it has already too much stuff inside. And we would like to start off with a stateless widget. Const, and how do we call it? I think login page. So if we have that, we can now use a shortcut STLESS, and it will create us a Flutter stateless widget. Pressing enter, we call it login page. And with that, we can see it creates us a black placeholder. The reason is we use here a placeholder widget, which contains nothing inside of it. And to get started, we will use this placeholder a lot. So const column. That was the first thing we said, right? We want to use a column. And inside of here, we have children. For example, placeholder. And there we can maybe add some of them just to make sure that we see something. All right, now we see already we have here a problem with the size, right? But that's fine. The placeholders are a bit too big for us, but that's not a problem because we are not there yet and our login screen will be looking a little bit different. All right, now back to our image. If I take a look here, we have a little bit of space left and right. So that means our column is maybe in a padding involved. So that means here and here is space, right? And what we can do so is we wrap the whole widget part into a padding. Let's see what happens then. Did something happen? Renders overflown. Yeah, yeah, of course. So let's increase that to 32. Correct. So we have on top, we have a little bit of space. We have on the left a little bit of space and on the right. But still, we do not have any background at the moment. So here we had the input that we could use a scaffold without an app bar. And I would do that, or do we need that even? We could also use a container. So if I press Command dot, we get always this context menu. And as you can see, we have this whole wrap with something. So we could use a column, for example. Or even better, no, a column in a column is not what I wanted, sorry. I would like to have a container. Yep. And inside of this container, we have a color. Colors.red, for example. So now is the background red. But that's not our plan. Hey, concept coder, welcome from Indonesia. Great to have you. So our plan is to have it from dark bluish to have more or less a little bit lighter bluish. Let's see if I can collect this color somehow. Oop, I closed the image. That was not my plan. Yep. So how do I collect the color best or easiest? I think I need a separate tool for that. And because it's a new computer, I need to download it. Color Slurp was it, I think. Up. Open. Good old Color Slurp. My absolutely favorite tool for that. So, getting rid of that and show my Color Slurp and this. And now I can click on this nice little icon. Continue. Oh, now I have to. Reopen. So, getting back my Color Slurp. So, picking. And I would like to have on the top right corner, we have that. You hear that nice little sound, I hope. And I get this color code here. And with that, we can now go back to VS Code and say we would like to have a gradient. Oh, that's not possible. A container does not have the attribute of a gradient per se. We need something called a decoration. And this contains a box decoration. If you, starting out with Flutter, you probably don't know what needs to be inside of here. You can always, by coding command, jump inside of these things. If you jump again, you see what parts it needs, and it has the whole documentation part of it. So you always can read what you exactly need. Indonesia, Malaysia, nice, all these hot countries. I guess you have good weather at the moment, or do you have rain time at the moment? Sorry that I ask so weird question as a German, you know, we are far away. So we use at this moment hot, okay, very hot. Very bad weather for us Germans because we don't have ACs. Hari Raya, okay. So, and now with this box decoration, we can use a gradient here. And gradient has different options, like for example, a linear gradient is from one point to another point, a radial gradient is from a point to the outward, and a sweep gradient, I don't know anymore. Just Google it. So a linear gradient has some features, and I don't know why my code highlight is not working, but usually if I press here, no, somehow it doesn't work. No. Huh, weird. Yeah, Apple. VS Code, code highlighting, syntax highlighting, tokenization. I thought the shortcut is control space, but it isn't. Okay, I don't know. But I think we have the colors where we have a list of colors. So we can pass in a list with color 0xFF for 0xFF is a hex code, which means it is a number, and it will be a 32 bits long number. So we start with FF, which means full opaque 16, right? So 16 and 16 hexa counted. And now we need to pass in the numbers that we had beforehand. And you can see already it's getting this teal tone that we searched for. I think we can make this a const. So, and passing in that and that. And if we check out our app in the meantime, it's still blackish. Doesn't work like we expected. But why is this the case? The reason for that is the first color is of course for a gradient somewhere. So it misses the second color. So for that we take again our slurp tool, getting our second color on the bottom left. Great stuff. And taking the second color, color 0xFF, and passing in that one. And great, that worked already. So we start left and go to the right. Other way around for me. Okay, I'm mirrored. So we start here and go over there with the colors. But now we would like to move that, right? So we want to start from one side to the other. So there should be a second attribute that we somehow have to find. And the biggest problem if we don't know that, I don't know how to, anyway, we can check it here. So we have this begin and this end. That sounds very promising for me. So if I go here and say begin, we have an align geometry that we can pass into beginning, right? Align center left, for example. And if we use that and say alignment dot bottom left, we can see already that it solved nearly our problem. The only problem is now it's on the wrong side. So we can either change the color, so we push it to the left, or we switch, that we say we start at the top right, and then it would also work. No, but not as much as we would like to it. So in my opinion, I would recommend to just switch these two colors from the timing. So now we see we start this way. We start down here and we go up here. Great stuff. So with that, we have our background already solved. Now we could say, I think in the screenshot, it looks like the dark bluish is starting nearly there somewhere, right? So we have two options. Again, we could say we slurp again and get a next color inside of it, 0xFF, and then we can use the slurp tool and say somewhere in between there needs to be this next layer level. So getting this color inside, comma, so. And now you see already it's getting a little bit darker, but we can also increase this, I think steps is the names, or stops, which is a list of doubles. So I think that's the number between 0 and 1. And we could say something like 0.8 and see what happens. Nothing. It needs more than one stop. How was it? Let's read quickly what stops actually is. So here, a list value from 0 to 1 that denotes fractions along the gradient. If non-null, this list must have the same length as colors. Okay, if the first value is not 0, then a stop with position 0 and a color equal to the first color. Okay, makes sense. So we have to pass in from where it starts. So let's say 0.2 and 0.8. How does that look? Didn't work. Huh. Colors, tile mode, transform. I thought it is stops actually. Stops, list of double. 0.0 and 0.8. It's 3 colors. I have 3 colors. Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. So now let's increase that. And here we go. And here we say 1.0. And then we can increase that number as much as we like. And as you can see, we can come closer and closer to that. So it's darkish on that side, getting brighter on that side, and then we go over. And can I increase that to something over 1? No. Doesn't change anything, right? No. It's getting stronger and stronger and then changes. So somehow we have to check how we can even increase that. But as you can see, we have a lot of options here. And I think the tile mode transform. What is the tile mode actually? This is the clamp. Decall, okay. What do we have else? 2 more colors is also an option, true. Okay, so let's add 2 more colors. So I think we had the first color already. Let's remove this and let's get the second color. I think it's the easiest way to just add 2 more colors to it in this case. But I think it would be also possible to somehow optimize it on a different way. And I think we can take such a bluish here. Check. So with all these colors, let's see how much more it looks like the screenshot. Still not quite there. I think it's just the last third that we should update. So what we could do is try again with stops. 0, 0, I don't know, 0, 5, 0, 8, and 1, 0. But still it doesn't look quite right, don't know why. Yeah, but I don't want to invest now too much time to fine tune that. But if you want to into the project, you can take a look. and check this linear gradient. Usually you should get all the options to make this look really perfect at the end. It's all about calculation, I guess, which I do now wrong. Okay, but now back to our placeholders. We have our column, right? And we said already, it could be that we want to center that, right? Because the login part here, for example, looks very much in the center, and it's also not that big. So what we can do is taking this placeholder, wrap it with a widget, a sized box, and now let's add here height of 100 and width of 100. And now we can see, thanks to the column, it seems that this is already centered in the cross-axis alignment. So the cross-axis alignment is always not the main one. So columns is always from top to bottom in the main axis alignment, and the cross-axis alignment is then onto the right. And my opinion would be that the cross-axis alignment default should be centered. And my assumption is correct. We can read that here. So we can see that the cross-axis alignment for a column is always centered. So we don't have to pass that in again. That's the reason why this is already centered here. Good. Next step, we have the login. So we could also create a placeholder for that. So we'll just copy that over. And here we don't have a width of that. Let's say we have a little bit smaller, so 75, and it will be a height of 25. So this is the text now that we have. We should have on the top a little bit more space, right? It looks not quite well. Oh, we get here even the pixels. So how much pixel would that be? It tells me about 50 pixels. So how could we add that? We have this, we have that, we have the padding. We have the option to add we could say that we have specify each of the paddings specifically. So we say top, left, right, and bottom. That would be one option. Another option is just to pass in a child of a size box with a specific height. And as we can see, it will push now down. The only downside of that is it will push it down plus this 32 pixels. So now we have here probably 82 pixels in total. So what we can do is, instead of edge insides all, we can say we would like to get from padding symmetric and pass in vertical from 32. And as you can see, that was the wrong one, horizontal of course. Great. As you can see now we have less space on top, but we still have on the side, because what the symmetric does, it's only putting in this 32 pixels from left and right. Good. I hope that was clear so far. Okay, now we have that. Then we will have two text fields here. We can add them also as placeholders. Check. And we say they are probably as height as the others. So we can, I think we should increase that to 50 maybe. And also say here 50 and here 50. And with that, we can already start aligning these things. You know, the placeholders are good. Without implementing or developing something, we can already see how it will turn out in the end. And they will be probably 3 times the logo. So from the width, we have here 300, something like that. So this is our text fields. And probably we need some space surrounding it, right? The login is the text. There will be a short space on top of it. Height of 20. And down here we have also one. Then we have the 2 text boxes. Let's see. We have space here. It seems that on top it has less space, so we should reduce that. Then we have these 2 text messages. Yep, that works. There's a space in between, probably also the same, the half of the top one. So we can take that. I guess we increase that. And in between we have the 20 now. Then we have this remember me section. And here we have a checkbox. So that means here we have the first time that we have also a row of 2 placeholders. That means we don't need a sized box for that. We can say first we have a row with children, with placeholder. No, I don't think we need a child. Why is that reddish? Ah, because it's in the const builder, so we can't do that. And there are 2 placeholders inside. And let's also make them a specific size. The first one has a width of 30. And the second one can take all the space it needs. So now we have to pass in all the consts here. Sorry for that. It's just because, yeah, it complains here a lot. So, and why is this complaining? Child should be at last in widget constructor invocation. Try moving the argument. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, it wants to be at the end. All linter things, we can easily fix them. If this is blue, you press command dot, and then you can say you want to push that at the end of the arguments. Good. So now it looks like this, and the reason for that is the row takes the space that it gets from the height. So we need to also wrap that in a sized box for now. We will change that to make it a bit more dynamically later. But let's say we have this on 25 probably. And as you can see, this placeholder tries to take as much space as it wants because it gets as much as it wants. And now we would need to make that and wrap this in a so-called flexible was the one, and the other one was expanded widget. Expanded widgets tells this widget inside that it can take all the space until the end. So as much space as it wants, but only inside of the boundaries of the part. So it will not go over the boundaries here as easy. So, and then we just need a sized box again to have some space here. Great stuff. So, but now we can see this is way too long because the remember me will be way shorter. But I don't want to make it perfect now. We'll add the text later and then it's getting clear. I just want to show you how you can align inside of a column with a row now. And now we have a button and so on and so forth. I think you know the drill now. But let's implement some stuff. So for example, this placeholder, it's great that we know how big it is. So what we can do is we could use the sized box again with height of 100 and width of 100. But now we would like to make that round at the end. So I need to check. It has a child, okay. But I think instead of a size box, we will use now a container because I want to make it round. And I think the roundness is not padding, decoration, width, height, constraint, margin, transform could be one. But I think to make it round is the easiest way to just use a decoration again. So we could add here a decoration, and this has a box decoration. And here we have the border radius that we can take. And the border radius is just also a class, which takes, for example, the circular. And here we pass in the radius that we want, in our case 50. And let's add also a background color, just that we know colors.white. And here we go. We have already our name thing. So inside of there will be an icon. So we can also do that. Thanks to Material, we have all the icons from the Material app. So what we can do is inside of this container, we just have a child. And this will be an icon. Icons dot, and here we want the, I think it's a user probably, or avatar. Avatar? Person? Aha, person, okay. What person do we have? Person 2 outlined, something like that, looks a bit closer. Let's change the color to colors.gray. And make it a bit larger. Size is, I don't know, 100. Okay, a little bit smaller, 80. So it's still not perfect, but you know, you can take here all of them. This is now looks a bit ugly. Do we have not a beautiful person outline? What is person 3 outline? Person 4 outline? Ah, okay, those are different persons. I don't know, the line is very thick at the moment, which I don't like. But you get the drill. You have now this image, you have this person inside. And what we can do is we could even give the container now a shadow, that it looks a little bit more shadowy. I'm not sure if this is part of this screenshot, but yeah, we could do that. Next we have the text. Text is a very important widget. So we keep the size box for now and just update the child and add here a text. And the first thing that a text widget receives is a string. And here we can enter everything like login. And now it's getting a bit weird. It's getting reddish. And this is a problem because we don't have a material app surrounding the whole thing. So we could, one solution would be to wrap this with material. Oh, then it would work, but that looks pretty ugly. A better solution, I think the bad thread was showing us, is we can surround the whole thing with a scaffold. A scaffold contains all the information about material inside of our app, and we can see that the text looks much better with that. So if the text is working, we have to update and give the properties like text style into it. Style. Text style, and inside of here we have all the different features that we can pass inside. I have to check why this is not working with the keyboard, but I'm not sure if I can do that now. But if I can't highlight the code, that's really annoying. Yeah, but what we can do is changing the color of this text from login. We can change the size and things like that. So I think this color could be just whitish as color slurp. Let's take it. Is this white? This is F2. Even that is not whitish. So great stuff. So you are color 0xFF and giving the color code. And from the color, I think it will be the same for the, whoops, that was a mistake. For the login. Oh no, it's even different. Okay, great stuff. So color 0xFF and give in the color code. Now we can change the text size. Let's say 40, no, that's 80. Ah, it's because of the height and size that we pass in. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't know, something like that. We can optimize that. We could change the font naming and things like that. So we can, in the text styles, we can update everything. So, but if we keep now always all the text styles inside of our main file here, we get very quickly cluttered, you know? All that stuff, you see it already. Flutter is unfortunately very verbose. So because you don't have a CSS file like in HTML, you have all these information always inside of your main file. And that's a little bit unfortunate. What you can do in this case is you can create, for example, a const.dart file and move these things surrounding it. So that means if you know that this background will be used in every widget that you are using, you can take this and even the whole decoration, and you can take it and put it inside of this const.dart file and give a variable name for it, like background gradient. So now it will complain because it has no imports, but we can easily do that. So I take here the painting import and not the material import, just to keep the possibilities as low as possible without adding too much noise here. And what we can do now is, if I finish that, I can use this variable here, go back here and replace that and import it inside of this file. And as you can see, nothing has changed. But if I would have now 2 or 3 different widgets or things that are working with it, I can now change the colors here once. So let's say I just don't like the last color anymore and remove the stop here. And now if I save, it will change automatically here. Probably I have to hit hot restart, but yeah, now you see the difference here. And with that, you can create also these parts. Now it is quite annoying if you have to do it always globally. So you have multiple options here. The one thing I saw a lot is to create a const file or a specific stylings file for each widget. That's one option, but it's also very verbose again. People also do that every constant that they create is on top of the file. So it's like above here, and they would say, okay, we just put it here. And as soon as it's only used inside of this component, we have all the constants on top of the file. Not my favorite approach, but all of that is possible. The problem is still Flutter is in the end quite verbose, and that needs some solutions for that. Okay. All right, and I think now let's have a look into our ClickUp part. I think scaffold we talk, column row, container widget, text widgets. I think we had all that. I think we did not come to the interactivity part. We can do that the next time. And then we finish maybe this login screen and work further on that. Maybe some announcement to the channel updates, what we are doing at the moment. I switch quickly to the intermission. So let's talk here. So there will be some quite interesting topics. First of all, I found a sponsor that will help us in the future. And especially will help me with the video creation and content creation, which is pretty good. And besides of that, there will be more live streams. I want to do that again, and probably I would like to finish one of my projects or create a project that we finish. And I will use all the tools that exists there to finish it. That means if we are working with ChatGPT, then we do that. If you have questions there, we do that. If you have packages that you recommend, we do that. And probably it will be, I have one time that my Bitcoin app that I would like to finish, and that another solution would be my Flutter community app that we could create together. And yeah, that would be my solutions there. Was ist das für ein MacBook Pro? I am using the newest one actually, because I got one now when I got back to the freelancing, I leased myself one. And I had now 2 years one M1 chip MacBook, and I loved it. And the M2 Pro has the benefit that I don't need to, for live streaming, to set up my whole big computer desktop down there just to stream there. I can do it with one device. I don't have to set it up very easy, hard, and so I love that. I'm completely impressed by the whole, how do you call it, MacBook Pro things. Yeah, but what that means for us is in that time where I will make more live streams, where I've planned more live streams, there will be not so much video content. So I probably will not do it next month, like April, May. It will be more in June or July, where I will make live stream after live stream, like maybe 1 month where every day there will be a live stream 2 times or something like that. And where we work on this project. Or maybe we create a Flutter game, would be also amazing. But why do I want to do that? Because I would like to love to release again something on the App Store and work on a bigger project. And if you would like to join there, it would be amazing. Good. WDC, yeah, it's maybe a good idea to also wait for newer devices. But this is Apple, you know, whenever you buy something, you are anyway too late or too early, or you buy anyway not the best device that is possibly there. A lot of people also recommend the iPad and only work on the iPad. I don't see that for live streaming. But the M Pro 2 was good choice for now. I have never used it fully so far. Let's see. All right, with that, thanks for watching. We see us the next time, and see you the next time. Bye.